Good evening. I'm Patty Brown, and this is my podcast. And it is about a book that I have written. It's not published yet, but I'm working on it. And it's called The Town That Raised Me. And it's about the stories of my childhood and what it was like growing up in a small, rural southern town, not too far from Charlotte. Um, and this was, I mean, I'm older. This was a while ago. And how different things are because I grew up. Uh, I mean, I had a telephone and there were TVs and all that, but we did not have computers, smartphones, social media, none of that. So it was a different kind of growing up, and I think it's interesting to hear the stories. People my age will resonate with some of them, and there was a real innocence about my childhood, which I think is really missing in today's society. So today, though, I have been reading like stories from the book, and today I'm actually going to tell us. I'm going to tell a story, a very short one, about the way my parents handled stray dogs when they visited our house, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But and then I would like to share a couple of my poems about dogs. So this is going to be a very dog-centered podcast tonight. And my dogs are actually in here, Maggie and Atticus. They're laying under a table. I hope they're going to behave. This is very risky what I'm doing. So they may get up and start barking. And if they do, my son is going to escort them out, but you may hear some barking. And usually it's Maggie that initiates all the barking. But I'm not expecting UPS. This is Memorial Day. It should be very quiet, and hopefully they're just going to be on their best behavior. But you know how dogs are. So anyway, before I begin, and I want the story and what happened that I want to share with you guys. I wanted to talk a little bit just about how we are about animals, and how I think things are probably going to be, or I think they are changing, but I think it's going to change more and more as we move into climate change. And there's a great book that I've just ordered, and I was hoping to have read some of this, and I haven't yet, but I'm going to. It's by John Gray. He is a philosopher, and this is about humans and animals, and the way we perceive ourselves as not being animals, and that we perceive ourselves as superior to all animals and that we own them. And I don't think that's actually true. And, animals are very sentient creatures. And when you learn about crows, how amazingly smart they are, a lot of the birds are just brilliant. And I mean, just my dogs, I mean, they are very intuitive, and we have a way of communicating that's, in some ways, it's almost easier to be myself around my dogs than it is around people. And I think a lot of people feel this way. And when they lose their dogs or their cats, sometimes it's harder than when they lose a human. And of course, society is getting better about recognizing that. But for a long time, that was just considered crazy that, somebody would be more upset about losing a dog or a cat than, let's say, maybe a relative, but it's just this bond that we get with them that is incredible. And the closer we become to animals, the more we understand how much they are like us, and yet they're different too. They have a lot to teach us, that sometimes we don't pay attention to. So, so what I wanted to tell you, just a little story, and then I'll go into, why I'm even going into having this dog night. When I was a little girl, dogs ran loose. There was no leash law; they just ran loose. And of course, a lot of dogs did get hit by cars, but people were kind of careful in the neighborhood, and traffic wasn't as bad as it is now. And so a lot of times, just dogs would show up in our yard, and I loved animals. And so if a dog showed up in our yard, I'd go get my parents. I was really young, maybe 7, 6, something like that. And I would show them the dog, and my parents were wonderful. They would say, oh, let's get him a bed, and let's get some food for this dog, and we'll let them have a place on the porch tonight so they can rest. and eat something good. And so we would do that. And that pleased me immensely, because I loved all dogs and worried about them. And so for the rest of the night, I would be going back and forth to the porch to see if the dogs were still there. And they usually were. And so right before bedtime, my dad would tell me to tell the dog good night, and I would. And he would always say, let's leave the light on for him because he might get afraid. And so we would. And so I would go to bed feeling very safe, my heart very anchored that we were doing a good deed and taking care of a pet and maybe somebody's pet that was lost. And so because I had parents like that, I really always had a respect and a love for all animals, and maybe too much. Maybe I'm a little too sensitive about them, but that's just the way my heart works. So one day I walk my dogs now because I'm in my hometown right now, and I walk my dogs on a farm that belongs to a family that was very good friends with my parents, and it's an interesting place because it is pretty much just a few minutes from downtown, but they have 30 acres. And they've sold off some of it. I'm not sure they have quite 30 acres now. But anyway, so there's a lot of places to walk, and it's really nice to be able to go into the woods and the pastures, and not just have to walk, around a block. And I just love that solitude and, seeing wildlife and all of that. So one afternoon, just out of the blue, I looked down the street, going towards the main road, and a dog was walking towards me, and I could not tell if it was a coyote or if it was actually a dog, like a German Shepherd type dog, and it was very thin, and it was just hanging its head. It really looked very, very bad, and so I tried to get the dog, to come to me, and it was very afraid, and I called home and asked someone to bring me some dog food and some water and a couple bowls. And I started feeding the dog. And at first, it would not, it just cowered in the bushes, tail tucked between its legs. Really, it was very, very sad. And but as the week went by, the first week, the dog was getting a little less fearful, and it would come up to the bowls when I was feeding it. It wouldn't let me touch it, and but I could feed him, and it's a her, feed her and give her water, and she started waiting for me at the fence gates because she was like right beside a pasture, the front pasture, and she was actually on someone else's property. It was the original home place, but it was somebody else has bought that property because the parents who initially bought this property, they have long been passed away. So the people that lived there, they were on vacation. So I figured I'd have this whole thing worked out, and the dog wouldn't bother anybody. And I called, the rescue, and I called animal control. And of course, they're full because so many people are now just dumping dogs after COVID, and or they get a puppy and they think it's going to be real easy to take care of, and then it's more than what they want to do, and then they just desert the dog somewhere, which is horrific. But they were not going to be able to help me, and so I was kind of in a mess because I have the two dogs, and I'm getting ready to move, and I just didn't think it was a real good time to be taking a dog in, and so I just kept feeding the dog, hoping. But I mean, I couldn't get like a leash on the dog anyway, so. But by about the second and third week of doing this, the dog was feeling a lot better, and she would, meet me at the car, and she was wagging her tail and talking to me, and really showing some personality, but would not let me get a slip leash on her. So the people came back, and I don't think they were real happy about the dog being there, although they have 4 acres, and she was on the edge front of their property. And the only time I think they really ever saw her is when they would walk their kids to the school bus. And this dog is not mean, so I think she talked to them, but I don't think it was like, there wasn't a threat that she was going to bite them or anything like that. And she's just totally friendly. So anyway, it just kind of kept going and going. I couldn't get the leash on, and I couldn't get really help as far as maybe a foster or any of that. And so it was looking like, I was going to have a new dog. And so I decided that I was going to take her because she had really bonded with me. And I'm not sure she had ever really had that kind of relationship with someone. Although if she looks to be about 2 years old, and if she had started roaming, you know, even a year ago, if she'd been roaming for a year, lost or whatever's happened to her, you know, dogs turn kind of feral kind of quickly. Although they can then come out of that once they get back into a normal situation. So I'm not really sure, you know, like what happened to her, where she's been, or anything like that. So anyway, some of the neighbors were starting to get where they just didn't like her around, and but they never would really talk to me, and they knew that I was trying to catch her, that I was going to take her home, but they were getting a little unhappy about the situation, and so one evening I went to feed her. And you know, I made sure about her water and everything, and spent some time with her, and then I left. And the next morning when I came back, she had just vanished. She was gone. And it looked like something happened to her shortly after I left, because um, the water was the same as it was when I left. And so uh, I, I don't think she was there during that night. I think she was gone. So we immediately started, you know, putting up posters, and I got back in touch with animal control, and they were going to look for her. And I started putting a lot of stuff on Facebook, and it was amazing with the rescue people, um, how many people actually saw that post. And so for 2 weeks, I was really I was almost sick about this. I mean, you know, because I really cared about this dog. And so in the beginning, we got a call that someone had spotted her about 20 miles away, close to the county line. And it's kind of in a rural area, but and near a new highway that's not, because the highway hasn't opened up all the way. It just goes to one exit. It's not heavily traveled, but somewhere along that road. And the guy that contacted was sure, absolutely sure it was her, from the pictures that he had seen. And the pictures were being shared, I mean, probably 800 times or more. Her picture was being shared and reshared and reshared. And so we went up there, and of course we did not see her. And then a few days later, we got another sighting where she was in a rural area about 10 miles away from there. And it made sense that she could have actually been there, because where that is on the highway is near a road that actually goes into the road where she was then seen in someone's pasture. And this lady actually had pictures. She actually sent me pictures, and she was running through her pasture, and it really did look like her. The pictures were not real close, but it was, I would say with certainty, it was her. So we knew kind of what area she was in. And this is, you know, really up in the country. And there's a little store there. And we stopped there and, you know, put up signs and talked to the people that work there. And they were all just just unbelievably helpful. And, you know, they were going to call us if they saw her. And we had so many people sending us information. And so the next sighting was past that store, coming closer to my hometown, which is Shelby. And they said that they thought she was going north. And so I was really concerned about that, because that was kind of the wrong way. But we had learned that they actually go in a circle. So if they don't have a scent, they go in big circles, and the circle it starts off rather big, and it gets smaller and smaller, and they try to pick up a scent. So we were looking for her, and, you know, it was about a week and a half, and, you know, I was very worried about where she was. And of course I really wasn't 100% sure this was her anyway. And so there was just I just didn't know what happened to her. And she wasn't in animal control, although they were helping us. And, you know, nobody had seen her, and the neighbors were not very concerned about that. And so I was very, very worried. So, anyway, so then we get a call from really about 30 miles away, and going close to the upper North Carolina mountains, the high country, not too far from there. And I was very worried. And someone said he had seen her at a crossroads. And I thought, well, if she's there, I will never find her. She will never get back. And so I was really feeling very, very discouraged. And about 2 days later, I got another call from someone else, and he had seen her at a high school that was very close to where she was when that caller said that she was kind of going north. And so it made sense to me that she could actually be at that county high school. And so I called everybody up there, everybody. And I had an appointment in Charlotte. And the whole way I was just talking to all the businesses that I could call that were in that community to see if they had seen her and if they would please keep their eyes open for her. And I was very, very hopeful that that's where she was and that she was not up in the high, near the high country. So, so I went to Charlotte and came back, and we were going to do a lot of looking that evening. And we went to walk my two Portuguese water dogs, my son and I, and we were driving back, and I get this call from someone that was in the neighborhood where I first saw her. And I couldn't hear him very well, and I was confused who it was because his area code was not the local area code number, so I didn't recognize who it was. And so then, and we kind of hung up. But then he called me back, and he made it more clear who he was, and he just said, "She's back. Gypsy's back." And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding me? Are you sure?" And he said, "Yes, she's sitting by the fence waiting on you." And so we hurriedly went over there, and sure enough, there she was, this totally skinny, starving, tick covered dog. And she was so happy to see me. I could not believe it. And so we stayed with her for a while that night, but we could not get her to get in the car. We could not get the slip lead on her. None of that happened. So I left a message to one of the neighbors there to just please work with us, that we were going to get her, but that she was back, and that she's probably traveled about 30 miles, which is almost hard to imagine. But I think that is what happened. And so, so the next day, we got a trap. One of the animal control came out. They brought a humane trap where we put food in it, but she would walk in there and eat it, but it wouldn't close. So there was some problem. And so I called them back, and this lady that works there, who's wonderful with dogs, she decided to try to hand do it. And so I had a hamburger, and I put it in there, and she walked right in there because she'd been in there a couple of times and nothing had happened. And so the minute she got to the front where the food was, she dropped the door to the crate, and Gypsy went crazy, and I couldn't believe how crazy she went. And then within a few minutes, even with her being in the crate, she was able to get the slip lead on her. And when the slip lead went on her, she really went crazy. And I was very worried because I was like, I don't think I can handle a dog like this. I mean, she's never been on a lead, evidently. She doesn't know anything about a leash or how to walk or anything. And so she started to calm down a little bit, but she didn't want to be near the animal control person. And so she said, "Well, I think she just wants you." So she gave me the leash. I was a little worried, even though I walk dogs all the time. I just never really been around a dog like this. I mean, and she just calmed right down. The minute I got the leash, she just calmed right down. And so we got her in the car and brought her to the house, and we set a place up for her in the garage. And the reason for that is because one of my Portuguese water dogs is very, very, very reactive. She's fearful of other dogs. This started just out of the blue when she was about 3 years old. Everything was great. She went to dog shows, and she, was around dogs all the time, and classes and all this stuff. And then suddenly one day she was just totally terrified of a dog. So, so she's still in the garage right now. She's been here for about, I don't know, maybe 5 days. And she's eating very well. And she's very tired though. We had a dog house that actually we had used for some feral cats one time. And we cleaned it up for her and thought she might like that, kind of like a crate, because we had, all of my dogs are crate trained. And so we thought it might be like a little safe haven for her. And sure enough, she went right into that dog house. And that's where she sleeps. She just loves it. And she's still fearful, but she's very happy, and she wags her tail, and she's just so sweet. Now, the first night it was a nightmare because my dogs were going nuts. But actually, since then, they sniff under the door. And yes, last night she actually went with a walk on a leash with my male Atticus, and that worked out fairly well. It'll be a little while before Maggie does that, but because Maggie, I'm not sure how she will act. And although she seems to be very calm, as far as she just goes and sniffs the door, she's not barking anymore. She knows she's out there. And we walk them at a park in the morning, and um, Gypsy goes ahead, and then Maggie and Atticus are kind of behind her. And sometimes we flip that, let Maggie and Atticus go first and let her follow. But they haven't actually caught up with each other. We're just trying to, let them know that they're in the same place, and that's perfectly okay. So it's been a really interesting journey, this whole experience. I mean, Maggie and Atticus, we bought them as puppies and trained them as puppies. And although I've had some rescues before, most of them were not quite this, I guess, I don't know if I should use the word feral, but because I don't really think she's feral, but I mean, she just hasn't been around like people, I don't think, a whole lot. I think she has been really on the road. And I don't know if someone lost her while traveling or if she was just dumped. I have no idea. She does have a chip, and we did check that. She's already been to the vet. She's had her shots. She's going to get spayed next week. But the chip was empty. And so they kind of think it may be just like maybe when she was a puppy, someone had that put in, like whoever had the puppies, or it could be from an animal shelter. And so they just said we could just add our name to it, because usually, if somebody owns the dog, they have all that information where it's readily available for veterinarians or rescues or animal control to contact the people immediately. And since that's not there, it's obviously, I don't think anyone's looking for her. So I think she's found her place. And she's very anxious to get back in the garage. She loves going for walks and she likes going around the block. But I think she's so thrilled to have that like little safe place, the dog house, and she can see us from in the kitchen and hear us talking, and we go out and visit her. And, I think this is just a great experience for her. I don't think she's ever really felt this, but, I sometimes think, when she was walking down the street that day, she saw me with my dogs. And while I was feeding her before she disappeared, she would go walk with us sometime, and she knew that the dogs were in the Jeep. And it's almost like she had decided that that's the life she wanted. She wanted to be like Maggie and Atticus, and it's worked out for her. So I'm anxious to see how things go over the next 3 months. There's kind of a situation that dogs go through who are rescues, and they kind of go through a process, so that it usually takes 3 months before they're totally comfortable and ready to like go to dog classes and things like that. So we're just anxious to see what happens. It's really an interesting story, but it makes me think about all the dogs that are homeless, and there's no room in many. The rescues are overflowing, and I'm sure it's the same thing everywhere and probably every state. And a lot of people have this real negative thing about breeders, but really good breeders. I'm not talking about puppy mills. And I'm not talking about backyard breeders. I'm talking about professional breeders are very conscientious. They're very they don't breed all that often. They're very selective in the breeding, and they try to make sure that they're breeding for a good temperament, for the breed as far as in appearance and build, stature, and also it depends on like if their puppies are going to be like shown in breed, or if they're going to be doing agility, or if they're going to be working dogs like on a boat or like out in the field or whatever. They try to breed for that. But the amazing thing is that when we got Maggie and Atticus, we didn't get to pick them out. She picked out the dogs that she thought would be best for us. Maggie's a year older. We went back a second time, so they have the same mom but a different dad. And we had to sign all kind of paperwork, and there were all kind of things that we would say we would not ever do with them. And but basically, if something were to happen to me or our family, our breeder would take them back and make sure that they were in a very good home. So, with Maggie and Atticus, chances are they'll never be in an animal shelter because they're chipped. And they would have to check that immediately and contact us. And then we always have that the comfort in knowing that um, our breeder will make sure if something happens that they have a very good home, and they know a lot of dog people that really love dogs, and so they have the connections to make sure the dogs get placed in the right families. So I think we need to cheer on the breeders that are professional, and try to get rid of the puppy mills and backyard breeding. And I really am not huge on neutering male dogs because I think there's a lot of hip dysplasia, and they need those hormones to have a good skeletal system. But yet at the same time, the only way you can do that and not is to be very, very, very responsible. You can't just let your dog run around loose, and you can't get them around a dog in heat. And really, most females, if they're not going to be bred professionally, they should be spayed. I mean, and I think even with spaying, you should wait, maybe till after the first heat, but for the same reason, for those hormones to be able to help with the development and of the dog, and to prevent, a hip dysplasia and some other issues. But we have to be responsible because we just can't have these homeless puppies running all over the place where, they have really no homes, and the shelters are full, and yeah, it's just a horrible thing. So anyway, it's just been an interesting experience dealing with her. And I've had, like I said, I've had rescues before, but not quite like she is. And so it's going to be over the next 3 months. I am going to try to do some training with her, and but I want her to feel a little bit more confident before we start doing that. And I want it to be fun for her, and I want her to enjoy going to a dog class. And I don't think right now she would really, I don't think she would really enjoy that. I think she would be a little too stressed, but I'm hoping that, in about a month, we're going to see a huge change, and she's going to want to do that. So I'll give y'all updates, even though I'll be talking about other things. So I know I've wasted this whole time on dogs, but I think it's just really important, how we treat animals and how we educate people. I mean, just like these neighbors, you have to want to help animals, and you can't just dump them on the highway. And it's something like, it's just like everything else in America. We have to work together about things, and we're really bad about doing that, and we're getting worse every day. And we can't solve problems unless we all work together to try to make sure that we're doing the right thing, so that we can solve some of these problems. And a lot of problems are not getting solved because we can't work together. So anyway, so before I get in today, and I'll have another actual story for my book next week, but I wanted to share with you a couple poems that I've written. And these are, of course, dog poems. And the first one I want to read is one that I wrote for a friend who we've never met, but we're dog friends. And she has a Portuguese water dog, and she has cancer, and her dog has cancer. And so I asked her if I could, really do anything. And she said, I just wish you would write me a poem about Cruz. And they're in California. And so I did finally. At first, it was kind of difficult writing a poem because I hadn't really met Cruz. But then just one morning, this is the way it always is. It just kind of came to me. So let me read you this first poem. I've got 2 more to read, and then I guess we'll call it a night. But so here it is. This is for Cruz. There is a soul. There are 2 souls. There is love, true love. There is conversation with eyes, the deepest kind. There is warmth as you lie by my side. There is a place where I can always hide, always with you. We have shared our lives in the quiet, and yet language can never define what lives inside my heart. Your heart today, tomorrow, will never be the end. I will see you again in our field of dreams, and love will remain. It will always remain. Our love is a rare thing, and rare things age like wine. I will hold you, dear Cruz, till the end of time. I so love you, sweet puppy of mine. So that was for Cruz, and Cruz is doing really good. I was checking up on him just the other day, and they're both doing good, and I like to hear that. That's great. And then this is a poem about Maggie, and my Portuguese, and she's Maggie's going to be 10 at the end of the summer, and she's got the most interesting personality. She's very, very smart. And um, she really thinks about things and she's the boss, really. She likes to rule the roost. Um, but I don't think life would be right for me without Maggie in the house. We're soulmates, I think. So this is a poem I wrote about Maggie one night, and I also want to share it with you. Here you go. Every night, Maggie comes to me. She sits in front of me, as close to me as possible. She insists that I gaze into her eyes, and I do. I tell her how much I love her, and she never looks away. I hold her face in my hands and tell her we were meant for each other. And she blinks, and I continue to look in her brown eyes. Atticus rushes over. He wants to remind us he too is here. I wrap my arms around my sweet girl. I tell her everything will be okay. She hesitates, then stands up, and with a quick lick to my face, several wags of her tail, she walks away. She turns around to see if my eyes are still on her, and they are. She walks to the bedroom window to bark at nothing. No one is out there. She barks anyway. She then steals my favorite sock and hides under the bedroom chair, waits for me there. She barks at Atticus in that very loud, annoying way, even when he has had enough. And she looks back at me as she pushes the envelope every which way, as if to say, you love me this much, right? You love me even when I somewhat disobey and do things that bother you, yet all the same, you love me to the moon and back again. Isn't that what you always say? And I tell her, I do. Yes, I do. I really do. And at the end of the day, she cuddles up beside me as close as she can reasonably stay. The room is dark. The moment is quiet. She is safe and warm next to me. And Atticus, he lets her have first choice as I watch them fall asleep. I feel a peace that is hard to define. The love I feel is so very, very deep, so real. But losing them before I leave this earth is the heartbreak of this often tragic deal. As tears come to my eyes, my heart goes somewhat empty, almost silent, and I wonder why. Why love always ends in this way. Something leaves and goes away, but not on this day. I plead with the universe to bend to my whim. Please let them stay every day and then another one, day upon day. I cannot imagine my life any other way. Maggie gently rolls onto her back. Her legs are stretched into thin air. I whisper to her, I love you anywhere and will always be there beside you. Good night, sweet soulmate. Good night. She rolls towards me. I sigh, knowing in this moment all feels right. The universe gift, the moment so sincerely replete. So that's about my sweet girl, Maggie. And she is a really sweet girl. And then this one I just wrote recently. In fact, this has a little bit about Gypsy in it. And this is my last one. And I want to share it with you. It's called To the Dogs I Have Loved. Dogs, they are such wonderfully sentient creatures. They so want to trust us, but we give them too many reasons not to. Humans have told each other that we are the owners of Earth, but we are not. We are the only species in nature willing to destroy all of us. Yes, animals have the deepest eyes. They look into our souls. Humans never do. They look from side to side, so afraid to love. Yes, animals greet us with a wild abandon, joy unleashed, and we often only appease it in our busyness to an arrogant nowhere. In my own life, I have learned from fallen baby birds, wild deer that meet me in the safety of the woods, the back of a horse, the communication in a gentle squeeze, a lost kitty's meow that comes to find me, and in the love of a dog's eyes. No, I do not want to be more human. No, not at all. I want to learn about trust and love and joy from a dog, the deepness of a soul who never speaks a single heard word, but loves unconditionally. The world we should see, the world we should be, through the eyes of divinity. Love humbles me, and I kneel, and the prayers answered when my pups come to me, bow their heads, bare their souls, and look into the mystery of me. They tell me without words, I will never leave you. And that is it, to never be alone. No matter the way of the day, someone always loves me, and I love them. The invisible divine energy that we let in with abandon, a joy that humans do not often fully understand, but I do. And now I have lost sweet Gypsy. I pray not at the hands of an evil man. Let her be safe. Let her find me, maybe somewhere, someplace else, a safe place where nothing can be erased, only learned, not in the darkness of what wrecks havoc in the heart of the broken man. Instead, in the light, in the peace I find with my very best friends. Oh, dear Gypsy, no need to roam, no need to travel alone with me. With all of us is your forever home. And so sweet Gypsy made it back, and she's out in the garage all curled up in her doghouse, and I know she's safe. And it's a happy ending to this whole ordeal that has been going on now for, gosh, probably almost a month and a half. So if you see a dog walking down the road and you're just not sure, um, help out, help the dog. You don't have to worry that, you know, I mean, people always have all these reasons, not to help. It's the thing that we need in this world right now. We can't, we need to look back. We can't just walk on past, stray dogs, stray cats, um, homeless people, vulnerable people. We need to open our hearts and take a second look and just remember that, things can change for us at any moment, and we can be in those same situations. There are no promises in life, and we need to treat people the way we would want to be treated. So anyway, like I said, it's Memorial Day. This is the end of it, I guess, weekend, and I hope you had a great break. I tried to do a video last week, actually, while she was gone, but something was crazy with the internet, and it was actually funny when I went back to view the video. It was, it was funny, but I sounded like I was like a tape that was going in slow motion. So I didn't figure I would put that out there. So I'm hoping this one's going to be okay, and I hope I'm going to get on a better schedule. And I look forward to next week. And I've ordered some new books, and I'll tell another story from my childhood. And please reach out to me. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So enjoy your short week, and um, I'll give you an update on Gypsy when I see you again. So take care and have a great evening. See you later.